We had a high school graduate on the stage. We had a person with 3 master's degrees. And now we are raising the stakes. Boris is a high school dropout. He decided to leave school at age 15 to start his first company or to be involved in entrepreneurship. And he started his first company back in 1997, and he sold it when he was only 27 years old. This is what they teach you in high school.
This is what they teach you in circus school. When I was
Boris.
15, thank you, thank you. So you were all out of time. Everybody's talking too long, so I'll speed it up for you. I'm not even going to give you a presentation. I'm just going to tell you a story. And the story starts when I was 15 and I dropped out of school and I went to circus school. I was so bad at school. I was dyslexic and I had bad eyes, so I couldn't read what the teacher was writing on the blackboard, and I couldn't read it. If I could read it, I couldn't read it anyway. So I dropped out of school and I went to circus school. And does anybody believe that? Yeah, sure, but I'll prove it to you. Because I thought you've been here all day, presentation after presentation, maybe you need a break. So I'll juggle with 3 balls now. Oh, apples, actually. I didn't really bring balls. You gotta pay attention because I'll throw them at you when I'm done, okay? So, 4 apples. Well, almost. So, I'm a bit rusty, but we'll try 5. You want to see 5? Yeah, all right. Pay attention, because I'll throw them at you when I'm done. Well, sort of. It's very difficult throwing apples. Who wants one? Yeah? There you go. So, I'm the co-founder and the CEO of The Next Web, which is a blog you all read, of course. There's not a country in the world where they don't read The Next Web. And it's an amazing company, and it grew out of a vision and a business plan that we once wrote. No, not really, right? We didn't start it with a vision or a business plan. We just started it. And if you look at successful companies, they never get started with a business plan or funding. If you look at Apple, they just built something that they loved. If you look at Google, they built something that they need. Nobody at Google or eBay or Apple or eBay, or already mentioned that, LinkedIn, started with a business plan. They all started hacking stuff together. Now, I have my own story of something that I built a few years ago. And it was at an event like this. The blog was already active. And somebody came up to me and he said, great post on your blog this morning. And I said, well, thank you. Do you follow us on RSS? And he said, no, I follow you on Twitter. This was at the time when there were 200,000 Twitter users. There are now close to 1 billion, I think. So 200,000 Twitter users. And so he walked away and I said to my business partner, like, this is really interesting, people are gonna follow us on Twitter and they get our news through that. Maybe one day this will become popular. And then he said, yeah, maybe. And I said, we should build something for that. I think we could build like a small service where you input your Twitter handle and then we show you an image with the amount of followers you have on Twitter. You could put it on your blog and then you get more followers on Twitter, and it should be really easy to build. You should build it. And then he said, well, that's funny, but we don't really have time for that. And I just thought, funny is the best thing you can hear in the world, right? Because that's a quote by Asimov, Eric Asimov. He said, the most important breakthroughs in science are never Eureka, it's, hey, that's funny. And he had a room like this with scientists, and they would work on stuff. And he said, there's never one that shouts Eureka. They're just working, and sometimes they'll cuddle together and laugh about something. That's when I walk over, and they say, what are you doing? And then they say, well, we were trying to do this, and then we did that, and then this happened. It was totally unexpected. And he says, those are always the starting points of great inventions, when somebody says, hey, that's funny. So when my business partner said, we're too busy for that, but it's funny, I thought, that's a Eureka moment. I should build this. Now, I'm a very bad developer, but I know how to use Google. So I went home and I Googled for the most difficult part of the system, and that was generating the image. I had no, I know a little bit PHP and some coding, but I didn't know how to generate an image. So I Googled it and I found a library, and 20 minutes later I had a very ugly image with a number in it, and if I changed the number in the database, I got a different number in the image. So I thought, well, that was the hardest part, let's build the whole thing. So it was on a Thursday, so I stayed home on Friday and the whole weekend, and I kept working on it, and on Monday I showed it to my partners, and I said, hey, this is a minimal viable product. If you type my name, you can see my statistics on Twitter, and you can get the image with the number in it. And they thought, well, that is really funny. So let's work on it some more. And on Thursday morning, exactly a week later, I thought, well, you know, it's not nearly done, but let's just launch it. You know, it's funny enough to launch. It's a gimmick anyway. So we launched it, and the Twitter founders tweeted about it, and some other famous people tweeted like, hey, you can now get your statistics on Twitter. And pretty soon, we started getting a lot of traffic to Twitter Counter. And the funny thing is that I'm such a bad developer. I also lost my voice before the weekend, so sometimes I lose it again. I'm such a bad developer that I never coded a login screen. So what would happen is you would go to Twitter Counter, which is a service that's still running today, and if you go there, you would see my statistics first. And if you wanted to see your own statistics, you had to change my name into your name, and then you would see your statistics. And that's very, you know, unusual for statistic services. Statistic services usually have like a screenshot of the statistics and then a sign up and a login screen, and that's it. But on my service, you could see all my statistics, and then you had to change my name into your name to see your own. Now, the advantage of this was that I was getting a lot of followers on Twitter. Because all these people who were visiting Twitter Counter thought like, well, this Boris person is obviously important because he's the featured user here, so, you know, maybe I'll follow him. So I was getting lots and lots of followers. Then one day, somebody sent an email and he said, could you make me the featured user on Twitter Counter? I thought, well, that's funny. So I wrote him back and I said, well, how much are you offering? And he said, $50 a week. So I walked over to my partners and I said, we have great news, we're cash flow positive. Because the hosting costs were $30 a month. So I thought, you know, we were, well, of course, not counting my hours, but still we were generating some revenue. So I tweeted it out and I said, just sold a week featured user on Twitter Counter. And the 3 other people said, we'll take a week as well. So now I was sold out. So I went back to my partners and I said, we have a problem, we have to increase costs. So we doubled cost and doubled again, up until a point where we were charging $1,000 a week. And then we thought, like, this is not really sustainable. So we changed it to a pay-per-view model, and we started getting more and more traffic. And right now, the service is very profitable. I won't give you all the numbers, but to give you some insight, at one point, we had a sort of a war between East Coast rappers and West Coast rappers, and they were spending up to $20,000 a week to be featured on Twitter Counter, alternatively, to get more followers than each other. So business is great. Now, the reason I like telling you this story is, of course, because I'm proud of it, and it's now a separate company and very profitable, the biggest Twitter statistics service in the world. But it's also to give you an example of how successful companies are born. And it's usually not with a business plan and a very detailed way of going about things. And if you think about it, Twitter Counter, if I would have written a business plan, I would have never come up with a business model, right? Because I didn't invent the business model. My customers came up with the business model. And of course, I would have never been able to raise funding because I didn't have a business model. So Twitter Counter would have not worked if I would have gone the way of a traditional startup. I had to build it. So my advice to you today is don't overthink everything. Don't spend too much time at conferences like, well, do spend time here and of course at my conference, but not all the time. Don't talk to too many advisors. Just get yourself, you know, Google for how to build something in PHP or whatever language you choose. Build something that your friends love, that you love, and where they call you when the servers go down. And that's how you build a business. I think I'm going to be the first speaker to finish ahead of time today. Thank you.